My name is Robert Nolan. I'm the editor-in-chief of Worldview magazine at the National Peace Corps Association. I'm joined today by my colleague, Oren Luke, who's our digital content manager and running the Zoom. And I just wanted to say welcome to our friends from Clark University. We've had the great pleasure of working with Clark over the past, well, number of years, but since my time as the editor of Worldview, we've partnered with Clark on a number of projects. Most recently, our guide to graduate schools, which you can find on the National Peace Corps Association website. And you will also find some more detailed information about Clark University and the programs that they offer for RPCVs on their website as well. So maybe we can drop a link in the chat there so you could check that out. I believe Clark, and I'll let them speak to this more, but offers something like 13 different programs that offer Coverdell Fellowships for RPCVs. And just getting to know the program over the past 6 months, I've learned that it's a very welcoming environment for RPCVs. A number of folks who have served in the Peace Corps go there, including one of our panelists today, Morgan. And so I think this is a great opportunity to learn about a topic which is obviously in the news. I don't know, I'm sure some of you folks have been following the COP29 summit, and that's just closing, I believe, today. So, obviously a very, very important issue that so many RPCVs care about. So with that, I will turn it over to Alyssa Orlando, who is the director of graduate admissions at Clark, and she'll introduce the panel, and hopefully we'll have some great questions from you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert. And thanks to all for attending today. Really excited to see you all here. Like Robert mentioned, my name is Alyssa Orlando. I'm the Senior Director of Graduate and Professional Enrollment here at Clark University. And I'm joined by three of my colleagues from the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice. So Dr. Morgan Ruel, who is an Associate Professor in SSJ. He's also a former RPCV from Armenia. And then we're joined by two students, Katie Walker and Abdullah Touré, who are both students in the Environmental Science and Policy program. And we're really excited today to both share with you a little bit more about Clark, about our programs in the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice, where we'll be focusing the bulk of our content today. Morgan and our student panelists are going to be sharing some experiential learning that they've been doing throughout the program, Morgan's research, as well as Katie and Abdullah's research also. So I'm really excited to bring you this panel today. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about Clark University, what makes us special, what makes us unique, and why our Department of Sustainability and Social Justice is so uniquely positioned to provide a really great opportunity for RPCVs to be able to experience all that Clark has to offer. So just a little fast facts about Clark before we get started. We're located in Worcester, Massachusetts. It's in the middle of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as we in Massachusetts like to refer to our state. We were founded in 1887, and we were the first all-graduate school in the United States. So we have a really strong commitment to graduate education, and specifically in the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice, to the programs that we offer that advance social good. We have 3,000 students from over 84 countries worldwide in graduate school, and in the graduate school and specifically, we have students from over 65 countries enroll every year. So our school is really a small, unique campus with a global focus and a global reach. And that's really what we pride ourselves on, especially in the SSJ department, where students are working both locally, regionally, and nationally and internationally on their research and experiential learning. We have a small campus, 10-to-1 student faculty ratio, really provides students with the opportunity to get to know their professors. I'm sure Morgan will talk both about his research individually, but also his work with students on a regular basis. That provides students with the unique opportunity to advance their skill sets right from the very first day that they enroll here at Clark. We are a traditional New England campus, so if you've ever been to New England, you'll know that most campuses are very foliage-esque. I see Katie with the trees background there, and our campus is kind of like this in my background, very picturesque, very out of a storybook, if you will. But we have the proximity to a lot of major cities, such as obviously Boston in Massachusetts itself, but also New York City, as well as Montreal in Canada. So you do have the opportunity to be close to those more metropolitan hubs. And then we're really focused on careers and community. So Katie and Abdullah will talk a little bit about how they've engaged in these research experiences, but 95% of our students engage in one of these experiences by the time that they graduate. We know that students right now are seeking both meaningful experiences at the graduate level, as well as a return on their investment. Graduate school does still cost students money, and we know that students want to make sure that they're getting as much as possible out of their education. We feel that we provide that for them. So you can see this is just a little picture. If you've never been to the state of Massachusetts, this is where Worcester is. It's in the middle of the state, Boston to the east, New York City down a little bit, the coast. And we're actually home to over 11 colleges and universities. So we have a wide variety of campuses throughout just the city of Worcester alone. And we're really focused on making sure that Worcester is a community hub and a college town for the students who reside here. And then more broadly speaking about why you would choose Clark for your education, and then we'll get into a little bit about the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice. Like I mentioned, we have extremely small class sizes, and this allows students to make connections right from the very beginning of their education. We have personalized career services, which allows students to connect not just with research opportunities, but also with internship opportunities and eventually job opportunities once they are ready to leave Clark. We have degree programs that deliver both practical skills as well as employment opportunities. A welcoming campus environment that embraces DEI. It's one of the pillars at Clark. I'm sure you'll hear Morgan and the students discuss about the commitment to social justice within the department. That really spans the entire university. It's a big focus of ours, and making sure that students are not just welcomed, but also that they feel included and that they belong. And that's a big focus of our work here at Clark. And then we also provide scholarships. So I'll talk a little bit about our Coverdell Fellowship at the end of the presentation and just how that's applied and how students can go about applying for that. But no additional application is required to be considered for merit scholarships, including the Coverdell Fellowship. All right, so we're going to get into a little bit about the department before I turn it over to Morgan and our student panelists to discuss their research opportunities and experiences. But the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice, while the name SSJ has only been around for about a year and a half, the department itself has been around for several decades here at Clark, providing quality education in the fields of international development, community development, and environmental science. And so we're really focused on what matters, and we have degrees that really address major social and environmental challenges facing our world today. So you'll hear Morgan and our students discuss the environmental science focus that they have in their research, but we have students focusing on poverty issues, on gender issues, really a wide variety of different programs that meet and suit your needs as it relates to sustainability and social justice. Our professors are also practitioners, so they're both working in the field or they're doing research in the field. And we feel that this sets our practitioner scholars apart because those individuals are really going after what it means to be a part of our department from the very beginning. They're practicing what they preach, essentially. And then the dedicated career support. If I couldn't have addressed this enough in my prior slides, let me just be very clear. Our focus is providing you with that first step or next step into the next point in your life, whether that's as an academic, whether that's as a practitioner in your field of choice. We want to make sure that you get to that next step. The research and the experiential learning that Morgan and our students will discuss is just one way for you to get there, but we have a variety of options for you to be able to make sure that your next step is one that's both meaningful to you and that provides you with the next step you need in order to make your career a success. So we have 5 graduate programs that are housed within the Sustainability and Social Justice Department, 4 that are solely housed in SSJ, and 1 that is shared with our Department of Geography. So our MA in International Development, our MA in Community Development and Planning, our MS in Environmental Science and Policy, and our MS in Sustainable Food Systems all reside solely within the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice. We also have a great relationship in SSJ with our Department of Geography, and our MS in Geographic Information Science is shared and housed within the 2 schools. So those students who are in the GIS program do take classes in SSJ, and they also take classes in the Department of Geography. So students in these 5 programs are truly interdisciplinary. Though they may be in a specific program, their courses span the disciplines that they are specifically enrolled in. So for instance, students in our international development program are very much interested in environmental science. Just because they're in the ID program does not mean that they can't study that. And quite conversely, our students in other programs are able to take courses that are meaningful to them and build that track, again, that's setting themselves up for the next step in their career. So these 5 programs are truly interdisciplinary, and they really span the meaning and they push forward the mission of the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice. You can see on the screen, I'm not going to read all these bullets to you because there are so many, but you can truly see that if you look in the left-hand column, we are really focused on providing you with an integrated course of study. So I was just discussing our interdisciplinary nature. I hope that this shows you that students who are enrolled in the program have the opportunity to have both courses that are a core, that are aligned with their program of study, and then they are able to really pick and choose a curriculum that fits their needs. So you might be a international development practitioner focused on environmental science who is focused on evaluation and really wants to make sure that that is the next step, more of a research or a quantitative track focus. Conversely, you might be a community engagement practitioner, really focused on being local and embedded into the field right away. And so you might pick courses that focus within that course of study. So it's really up to you, the course that you choose. From the very beginning, you'll be matched with a faculty advisor that provides you with the opportunity to learn more about your program of study and help you pick the best courses that fit what you're looking for. And these are just a smattering of career outcomes over the last 10 or so years from our program. As you can see, these outcomes span from very specific roles, such as a product engineer within a specific company, and up to very broad, a senior manager, a director of programs. So we have students at all levels coming into our program. We have some students who may have just graduated or recently graduated from their undergraduate degree. We have students who maybe have 1 to 5 years of professional experience. And then we do have folks who are at a higher level in their career and they're looking to advance and take that next step into a mid or senior level role within an industry that they are already working in. So that's where you see the range of, some students are moving into director roles while other students might be moving into associate roles, specialist roles, things like that. So again, really tailoring this opportunity and this experience as a graduate student here at Clark to you and your needs. And speaking of tailoring your experience to your needs, one of the best ways we do that is through research and experiential learning opportunities. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Dr. Morgan Ruel, who's going to lead our student panel and discuss our student research.
Great. Thank you so much, Alyssa. That was a really great overview. And thanks again, Robert, for your partnership at Worldview for the past several months. And we love working with the MPCA. It's really nice to be here. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Armenia back in 2004 to 6. It's been a little while. But Peace Corps really launched my interests in the relationships between people and plants, which has been my focus as an ethnobotanist for the past couple of decades now. I am excited to share with you various forms of experiential learning that take place within our department, again with a focus on our environmental science and policy program. I also teach in the sustainable food systems program, and so you'll see some overlap with our research. The first project I want to tell you about is actually a major project led by Professor Tim Downs, and it's focused in central Mexico, as you can see on the slide here. I'm one of the co-PIs on this project. It's been really exciting. And we actually take in 6 students every year with a substantial fellowship who do research in the field for 6 months, actually living in Mexico from January through July, conducting community engaged research, examining the impacts of climate change on communities, and actually visualizing futures using augmented and virtual realities. So it's a really exciting project. If you're interested in it, please reach out to us about it. And yeah, we're especially looking for folks who are fluent in Spanish or have high proficiency in Spanish. So if you served in the Peace Corps in a Spanish-speaking country, this may be right up your alley. And all of the degree programs that Alyssa mentioned on previous slides are eligible for this project. If you could move to the next slide, Alyssa. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own research, and I also have some opportunities for graduate students to work with me in the field on this project. I've worked in Ethiopia for almost 15 years now. Soon after my Peace Corps experience, I started working there in rural communities in northern Ethiopia. And early on, I was finding really interesting traditional practices that were being that were becoming less common due to pressure from the national government. So for those of you who don't know, Ethiopia is a center of crop diversity. They have a long tradition of agriculture, lots of environmental heterogeneity, lots of farming at different elevations. It's led to domestication of lots of different species and incorporation of lots of different plants into their farming systems. As a result of thousands of years of agriculture, they have really rich agroecological knowledge. And they use plant diversity to maintain stable yields when the climate is variable. And as a result of climate change, we all know that the climate is becoming more variable. And so it's really important for these farmers to maintain that diversity as a way to kind of ride out, the years of warmer temperatures, cooler temperatures, droughts, and high rainfall. So unfortunately, as I mentioned, we're seeing a lot of pressure from the government and international NGOs, some of them American, to produce export crops and focus in on particular high-yielding varieties, as opposed to maintaining the diversity of traditional varieties and practices that they have used to maintain stable yields in the past. And so we're seeing higher rates of crop failures, we're seeing lower yields, primarily due to drought and also new pests that are expanding north as a result of climate change. And this is leading to increased micronutrient deficiencies, kind of hidden hunger, lack of things like vitamin A and folic acid in the diet. So if we could move forward one slide, please. So back when I first started doing research in Ethiopia, I started hearing about this perplexing crop called Duranya in Amharic. And I was asking what it was, and people were saying, well, it's kind of like wheat, it's kind of like barley. And after a few visits to fields, I realized that it was actually an incredible mixture of wheat and barley planted in the same field. And this is something that has been kind of under the radar for a lot of agricultural researchers. We're very familiar with polycultures that include plants from different plant families, such as planting maize and beans in the same field. But mixing species from the same family, like two different cereals from the grass family, like wheat and barley, is pretty exciting. And the reason is that these can be planted and managed and harvested and processed together. They're actually prepared as food together. They're used in local beer or used to make injera or different kinds of bread, or they're roasted together. So they're actually consumed as a single crop. And what this means is that because there's diversity within that field, we have a reliable yield under a range of conditions. It turns out that barley is a little bit more drought resistant than wheat. Wheat is higher performing when the rainfall is ample. And so from year to year, the proportions kind of shift in response to the climate. And this means that farmers have a reliable source of food under climate change. So the research really focuses on how these traditional grain mixtures, and it turns out there are many other kinds of mixtures in Ethiopia and other places in the world, how do those contribute to the climate resilience and also the nutritional status of rural farming families? Barley and wheat actually have complementary nutrients, so eating them together is of benefit. And also, often the mixtures include multiple varieties of each, and those varieties can also provide different nutrients. So next slide, please. So this project is sponsored by the Rockefeller Foundation through its Periodic Table of Food initiative, and they're building this major center of excellence in Addis Ababa that is equipped with incredibly cutting-edge technology to evaluate the nutritional content of various foods and food products. And so through that partnership, we're able to really examine the nutritional benefits of the mixtures. And then we have students from Ethiopia and from Clark and also from a few other universities in the United States conducting ethnobotanical, agronomic, and also some nutritional surveys. So I'm really focused on these two areas, conducting surveys and interviews with farmers to understand their use of mixtures, how they fit into their food system, and how they're used within their traditional foodways, and then talking to farmers about both the economic and nutritional values of those mixtures to communities. And then I'm also supporting what we call mother-baby trials at Willow University in the region where these mixtures are grown. And what that means is that students grow the mixtures under controlled conditions on a field station. And so they get very systematically collected data under kind of ideal conditions, and then they control the conditions in particular ways. And then they also invite farmers to view those trials and take home some of the things that they're testing out to try in their own fields. And then they visit those farmers to see how the mixtures performed in a variety of different contexts. As I said, we take samples from both the interviews, from the things that farmers are growing, and from the controlled experiments to analyze the nutrient content and see what benefits they might offer. So just to reiterate, there are opportunities to get involved in this research, either as a fellow, as a Coverdell Fellow, if you're an RPCV. We also offer some other fellowships to support field research. And before I turn it over to Katie, one of the things I want to say, and this is probably true for all graduate schools, not just Clark, it's really worth thinking about whether you want to participate in a faculty member's research that we have ongoing. You know, we have grants that support our research, and we often have opportunities to bring students into those projects, or if there's a topic that you're really interested in pursuing on your own that doesn't yet have funding, but maybe could receive some funding from Clark. And so the two students who are going to speak next, both are kind of pursuing their own interests, and I think that that can be really inspiring too for all of you thinking about like, oh, I already have something that I'm interested in investigating further, and we love to support that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Hi, I'm excited to talk about my research today. So my research is focusing on air pollution from wildfires in New England. So in 2023, we're seeing a lot of air pollution from wildfires in New England, and it was making like headline news across the United States. And I was just reading like how these news articles are describing the event as like alarming or unprecedented or unusual. And so I was living in Vermont at the time when this happened, and I became interested in learning more about air pollution and the impacts on human health, and then contextualizing this event through a more historical analysis. And then my undergrad degree is in geography, and so I have a background in GIS and geospatial analysis. So thinking about events happening in a certain place, and then thinking about how that impacts through time and other areas is a perspective that I bring to my research. And then when I came to Clark, I didn't know what my research topic would be, but I did a previous internship during my first year that focused on air pollution. And so I became more comfortable and interested, and I became more interested and comfortable about learning about air pollution. Next slide. So my focus is on air quality trends, and these are my research questions. So what are the historical air quality trends in New England? And then looking at seasonal air quality patterns, and if 2023 was different from lows, and then looking at air quality differences between urban and rural areas. Next slide. So the data set that I'm using is the US EPA air data. And so it's a data set that has air quality measurements from sensors across New England. And then for the analysis, I'm using Python and Jupyter notebooks. And then I'm focusing on particulate matter 2.5. And then some of the outputs that I've been creating and working on is data visualizations of different charts and graphs to analyze the trends and identify any air quality measurements that are outliers. So in the graph that I have here on the slide is a scatter plot, and so it shows particulate matter values by date and the air quality index category that it falls into. And so you can see that there are seasonal trends where the summer sees higher air pollution.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. And I should have mentioned that Katie is one of our current Coverdell Fellows. So she's an RPCV who served in Senegal. Maybe you saw that on the intro slide. And then the other student we wanted to introduce today is Abdoulaye Touré, who has been working in his home country of Sierra Leone, looking at flooding adaptation in a coastal community. So Abdoulaye, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Morgan. And I'm so excited to be here to share my research on flooding in coastal communities. Over the years, we have noticed that flooding has become one of the major challenges for many locations within the country, especially in the capital city, Freetown. And as we all know, when these adversities happens, it doesn't affect people equally. So people living in coastal informal settlements are more at risk. So lately we noticed that there's a frequent flooding event all across the city due to climate change. We have excessive rainfall, and due to clogged drainages, which are poor, with also poor waste management practices, it exacerbates the flooding events, affecting people's health and livelihoods, especially those living in coastal informal settlements, which are not officially recognized by the governments. There is a difference between what the government wants as well as what the people, as opposed to what the people residing in these communities need. While the government is pushing on relocating them, they are thinking about how they want to survive with the flooding events. Regardless, the government says these places are disaster prone and there's nothing they can do to manage the flooding issues that are associated with these locations. But the people have insisted to stay in these communities. So there is a lack of support for the local strategies. They have what they've been doing. They've been doing to survive the flooding events. In fact, this is what pushed my curiosity to know what they've been doing to survive recurrent flooding events, regardless of the lack of support they get from the government, and the government want them to be out of that location. Next slide, please. So my research is focused on understanding the flooding adaptation strategies of one of the coastal communities called Colvert. And in this, I was interested in answering two research questions. I wanted to know how residents of informal coastal settlements in Freetown adapt to recurrent flooding events. And addition to that, I wanted to know the social, cultural, economic, political factors that influence the adaptive capacities amid the recurrent flooding they've been experiencing. Of course, we all know, regardless of the fact that these places are occupied by people with different economic status, they also have different ways they can survive the flooding events, and these are all influenced by these various factors. So this is another research question I'm looking forward to provide answers to. Next slide, please. So I'm using the qualitative research approach to understand the flooding adaptation strategies from the lens of the residents. over the summer, I was in Sierra Leone doing my data collections. I was collecting data using 3 methods. I did transect walks with community members to be able to identify areas of vulnerabilities and those that are have flood histories. And I also conducted interviews with residents where I had the opportunity to have in-depth information, spent some time over an hour each with most of the participants, and they were able to provide rich information. I also organized gendered focus group discussions to be able to get a community perspective about how they've been dealing with flooding within the communities. And I've been working on the data analysis. When I came back, I tried to translate the data, transcribe, and then did coding using the NVivo application, where I was able to come up with major themes around vulnerabilities, impacts, and strategies for adaptation. And I must be honest, there are interesting findings coming up, and it's ongoing. I look forward to ending it and see what we can bring out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much, and it's really been a pleasure working with both Abdullah and Katie on these projects. And I want to just, before we turn it back over to Alyssa, I just want to point out that Abdullah is supported, his research was supported by some internal funds within SSJ, and that's something that's available to most of our students. A lot of our students receive funding to do their own research if they're not associated with a faculty project. Thanks so much. We'll turn it over to Alyssa.
Thank you, Morgan. Just a few slides on the admission process for this year in case you have been inspired by Morgan and our student panel to potentially apply to Clark. Know that while our admission requirements and application deadlines change from year to year, they don't change that much. So if you're thinking, a year, 2, 3 down the road, we're certainly willing to come back and have the conversation with you in the near to distant future. So still, maybe take this in and think of, and while I'm working on providing you with this information, I know I mentioned in the chat, if you do have questions for Morgan, Katie, Abdullah, we're certainly welcome to answer anything that you might have. So please feel free to leave your questions in the chat, or you can privately message them to me if you'd like, and I'm happy to share them if you would prefer to remain anonymous. So I will give you a bit of information about our application requirements here at Clark. Our application requirements for our master's programs are mainly the same across programs. And Robert actually mentioned at the beginning of this session focused on our Department of Sustainability and Social Justice, but we do provide Coverdell Fellowships for students also in our School of Business. So these application requirements are for both programs, the SSJ programs and the School of Business programs that qualify for the Coverdell Fellowship. So please keep that in mind. Maybe the MS in Environmental Science and Policy is not what you're looking for. Maybe you're seeking an MBA. We're certainly willing to help you work through that process. So we do have an online application. It does come associated with an application fee, but if you attended today's session, we will be able to provide you with an application fee waiver, so you would not need to pay that application fee. We do request all academic transcripts from all of the universities you've previously attended. So if you attended more than one undergraduate institution, we would need at least both of those transcripts, if not all. And then any graduate work you may have done previously. So let's say you did another master's degree already, or maybe you started a master's degree, but you did not finish. We'd want to see the transcripts from those programs as well. We do request a personal statement. Typically, that's anywhere from 500 to 1,000 words, really focused on why you're looking to pursue graduate school in this field of study and why you feel Clark is the best fit program for you, as well as any career goals you have post graduation. So we're really looking, why us, why now, why this program? Our resume or a CV is required. We typically are looking for your work experiences that you've had previously, as well as just a summary of your educational background. We really want this to be a one-stop shop for your background. We can look at it, know who you are as a person, figure out where you've been, what you've done. If you have a longer history, you don't have to provide in immense detail on every position you've ever had. But if you're within 0 to 10 years out of college, most of the jobs that you've had are typically relevant for your CV. So adding those with a description, the dates that you were in those positions, as well as any education history that you do have, the degrees earned and the dates that you earned them. We require 2 letters of recommendation. We do ask that if you are recently graduated from a program that you have at least 1 academic reference. That's because you haven't had a lot of professional experience. And so those professors may still know you, know your research aptitude, know your ability to potentially succeed in graduate school. And then you can provide 2 academic references, or you can provide 1 academic and 1 professional. If you've been out of school for some time, 2 professional references are absolutely fine. I will make a note, if you are applying for the Coverdell Fellowship, if you are currently in service, you will need one of those letters to be from your country director indicating that you're still currently serving. And if you're not currently serving, you previously served, you will need a letter from your country director and a specific letter. And we can work with you on what that looks like and the format of that and how that needs to come to us. But you would submit that in addition to your letters of recommendation. For the Department of Sustainability and Social Justice, the GRE or GMAT exams are not required. In the School of Business, we do have some waiver options for the MBA in particular. So the MBA is the only specific program that the GMAT is still required for, but there are some waiver options. But if you're applying through Peace Corps, typically that is waived. So one of those options is typically the waiver. But I know some students see that on our website, get a little bit nervous about that particular requirement. And then the English proficiency scores, most of you will not need to worry about that. But if you are a foreign national or you did not complete your degree in the United States, we may need to discuss that. So again, having an individual conversations with our admission team is always advised as you're going through the application process to make sure that all of your documents are in order and that you have everything that you need to move forward into the next step of the application process. In terms of how we review applications, I know some students can get concerned about maybe they didn't do as well in their undergraduate experience as they would like, but we perform a holistic review at Clark. And what that means is that we're looking at all pieces of your application process, not just your education history or the GPA that you received in your undergraduate degree, but we're looking at your work experience. We're certainly looking at your service experience and all of the supplemental materials, the letters of recommendation, the personal statement. We're using all of those to make an informed decision about whether or not you are a good fit for Clark. And then we do offer 50% scholarships to RPCVs through the Coverdell Fellowship. So we're reviewing all applications for scholarship eligibility during the admission process. So there's no separate application for that, as long as, like Morgan mentioned, that you upload the correct documentation indicating your service status to us. Now we have that on file. We'll be able to potentially award you a Coverdell Fellowship. We will review you for that. Morgan will review your application as well as part of the admission committee. So we do offer that option for students who are coming back to the States through RPCP. This is our 2025 application deadlines. I know spring is really close, but I figured I'd mention it just in case anyone is so inspired today that they want to email me immediately after this session. Our final deadline for spring 2025 is December 15th, so it's about a month away. And then our fall 2025 deadline, which is a late August start, our priority deadline is February 14th, and our final deadline is June 2nd. For Coverdell eligibility, we recommend applying as early as you possibly can. I can tell you we already have several students who have applied through the Coverdell Fellowship Program for this fall. So you definitely want to get your application in early to be considered. And we can work with you every step of the way to ensure that your application is reviewed in a timely fashion. I appreciate the note from a student from the University of North Dakota, but I'm happy to take other questions and any thoughts folks who are attending might have. This is when I do my awkward professor pause. Morgan, I'm not sure, and maybe Katie, you as well, since you are an RPCV, if you have any thoughts on sharing just a snippet of what the Coverdell experience is like at Clark.
Katie, do you want to share? Put you on the spot. I'm the Coverdell coordinator. I forgot to say that at the outset. We have a welcoming event every August. So all the Coverdells, current and new, get together. And in the past couple of years, we've gone for kayaks out on Lake Quinsigamond in Worcester and had a little potluck. We're having dinner together actually this Sunday. So we try to maintain. Right now, there are 4 fellows, so we're trying to maintain just a tight community. Right after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, actually, we had a really large number of Coverdells because of Peace Corps evacuations. There were at one point 20, and so that was a really big community. They actually lived in many of them lived together in graduate student housing. So it kind of varies in terms of the numbers of fellows we have every year, but we really just try to keep in touch, support each other. It's a small community already. And a lot of our PCVs really enjoy connecting with international students who are from the countries where they served, even opportunities to practice language still and things like that. Katie, do you want to add anything?
There's also the Worcester RPCV group, and so they try to have events, I think every 2 or 3 months, and so that's a really good way to connect with other RPCVs that are in the area as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And maybe it's worth mentioning Clark just launched a new Peace Corps prep program for undergraduates. And so we also have a lot of opportunities for RPCVs to mentor undergraduate students who are interested in serving in the Peace Corps or doing any other kind of international service through that program. Peace Corps Prep is a program to prepare undergraduate students to serve in the Peace Corps or to engage in other kinds of international service. So it's a great opportunity to talk to them about your experiences. And for that program, every year we do have a paid position for a Peace Corps Prep assistant to work with me on coordinating. Yeah, we'd love to hear your questions if you have any.
So I have a more specific question, Morgan, not necessarily about the program, but just on your experience in Ethiopia over the last several years with the various wars that are ongoing. How has that interfered or disrupted your efforts there?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, Tim. So I was actually working in Tigray in northern Ethiopia before the war started, and the PI on a previous project was based at Mekelle University, and we had to pause that project for obvious reasons as the war unfolded there, which is always, I've had that happen a couple of times in Armenia as well. And so, yeah, it's important to continue to support our colleagues, but also, folks have different priorities when they're experiencing political and sometimes violent conflict. So that's been tricky. In terms of where to continuing our research, we really are committed to conducting research in Ethiopia. And so for a couple of years, I was working in the far southwest in Kufa, around the city of Bonga, looking at coffee plantations and adaptation. So we kind of pivoted there. And then more recently, the conflict in Wollo has focused us to work a little bit more around Addis Ababa and other parts of the country. So just being kind of agile, and we have a lot of connections in different parts of the country, so we can both make sure that we're in safe places and keeping ourselves and our students safe, but also always having somewhere else to work if something arises in the places where we are.
Thanks for the answer. Just aside, I'll share the guy's name with you, but I have a former Peace Corps volunteer friend who runs a coffee plantation exporting business now in Addis, and I was there last year when the war broke out. But if you don't know Simone Soretsu, that name's not familiar to you, Morgan. He's a really great contact, and I'll share his information with you, see if it's of any use. He's a well-connected guy that's incredibly helpful.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Right. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So Robert, I'm not sure if you want to wrap us up and let people know where they might be able to go next.
Sure. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended today, and to our partners at Clark University, to the students as well, and the Coverdell Fellows. Really great to hear about some of the concrete sort of on the ground work that you guys are doing. And I know that's what our PCVs are looking to do. And one of the reasons that this program is so attractive and holds so much value to them. So thanks again for being here. Thanks to the folks at Clark for taking the time to spend a few minutes with some RPCVs here. If you did attend today and you want to learn more, obviously there's some links in the chat. You'll see again Clark University on the Worldview website as part of our guide to graduate schools, which actually details a lot of the information that Alyssa was sharing about admissions processes and all the rest of sort of the application process. So we're really committed, along with our partners, to providing our PCVs with the opportunities, to pursue these graduate degrees and continue to work on the issues that we all care so much about as our PCVs. So thanks to everyone for being here. Stay tuned. We'll be doing more of these webinars as well in 2025. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the semester, and look forward to continuing to engage with you. Lastly, I'll just say that the next issue of Worldview will be coming out just before the holidays. So check your inboxes for that if you don't get it, your mailboxes, I should say, as well as your inboxes. So thanks for reading and being a part of our community.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.